What's up, everybody? JJ Buckets here, yours truly, and it's that sweet, sweet time again because we are talking basketball. Now, for today's video, I'm going to be doing a draft profile and continuing this series. Today's candidate is going to be Jalen Green, but before I get into how this works for anybody that hasn't been here, I do want to address something quickly. I've seen some comments talking about, why are we even looking at these guys? The Raptors are realistically going to be in the 6 to 10 range, and I get that sentiment where realistically it's more likely we're going to be drafting there, and those are the guys that we should be looking at, and I promise you I will get to them, but I think it would be negligent to not do your homework, so to speak, on these top guys when there is a realistic scenario where the Raptors move up. As of now, as of the recording of this video, I believe their chances to hop into the top 4, 26.3, and they would go up to 31.9 if they end up finishing with a worse record than the Chicago Bulls by year's end. So my point here being is when the top of the draft is this damn good and the Raptors have a chance to jump, you gotta cover these top prospects first. I will absolutely get to 6 to 10, but at the moment, we're still sifting through the top 5. So with that being said, the way these videos work, just quickly, I'm going to break it down into 5 categories. It is going to be the strengths of the player, the weaknesses, the fit with the Toronto Raptors specifically, the case for drafting the players if you're Toronto, and the case against. So with that being said, let's look at Jalen Green. Kicking it off with the strengths for Jalen Green. Now, first of all, I just want to say it is incredibly impressive what this guy was able to do at a young age versus G League competition. I'm sorry you can't convince me otherwise. The G League competition is tougher than the NCAA competition by a good bit. Change my mind. You really can't. So it really can't be understated and it really can't be undervalued that he put up the numbers that he did, which I believe was, he was scoring like 17 plus points per game on 46% shooting versus got former NBA pros and just grown men and doing it as a kid. Incredibly impressive. That being said, specifically looking at him, oh my God, obviously you start with the fantastic athleticism of this guy, right? Not only can he absolutely just jump out of the building sometimes, but he also just has an electric and explosive first step. It is so fun to watch, and it translates to him just being a fantastic just attacker of the basket. And in particular, I think he has really good body control that he pairs with that as well when he attacks the basket. Not only that, but when it comes to attacking the basket, I think he does it as a cutter as well, which is impressive. I think he has good instincts to just, time up that cut well, and he doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to attack the basket, which is great. He does it in the transition game too, in the fast break. He's really good at positioning himself and filling the lane properly to just make an easy pass for a teammate and, give his team just an easy 2 points. Really can't understand that. In all, imaginings and all facets, he just can attack that basket at will. And not only that, but he has a very good pull-up game. In particular, he just creates space for himself so damn well. That step back J that he has, nasty. Absolutely nasty. He's really just, by all definitions of the phrase, he is a shot creator. He is an absolute shot creator. He has very good looking shooting mechanics too. He has a polished scoring arsenal, and he can just he can score the ball at every level of basketball. And God, you can't underestimate the value of guys like that sometimes. He is a quote unquote 3-level scorer by every definition of that phrase, to go with obviously the shot creator one that I gave him as well. Just a lot of good labels really when it comes to his offense. I think scoring is his very obvious standout for strength, and I think it's something that's gonna really help him be successful in the NBA from the get-go. With his weaknesses, they're not glaring ones by any means. It's more so things that just need improvement, and things that will probably come with time, hopefully come with time and development. So I wouldn't be super worried about these points, but at the same time, first things first, he can be a little streaky from outside. He's a little prone to just cold streaks where the 3 ball just won't be dropping sometimes. And I've said before, it's not an issue of shooting mechanics, because I do think that is genuinely a strength of his. I think just adding a little bit of consistency, particularly maybe on catch and shoots, will go a long way for Jalen Green. So I wouldn't worry too much about that one. In kind of a similar light, his thin frame is something that's gonna fill out over time, and I think he will eventually translate to being a good defender in the NBA. I just don't think he will probably be one off the bat. I think he needs a little bit more effort on that end, and I think he should be fine down the road, but out of the gate, he might struggle a little bit on the defensive end. And lastly, he has flashed ability as a passer. I don't think he's lost in that department by any means, but it's definitely something that you just need to see on a more consistent basis from him to truly feel comfortable about the fact that, you know, he's going to be able to do that and he won't be a liability for your team in that regard. Again, he's shown the flashes, that is perfectly fine. It's just about seeing them regularly. Regarding the fit, he's obviously slotting into the 2 spot. I think he has such a natural build and frame for that spot, and I think if you're slotting him in with the starters, it's obviously going to be something like VanVleet, Green, OG, Pascal, and Birch, or otherwise a center that you acquired through trade or free agency. And I think that's a good lineup going forward. I think the reason I like Green in this lineup should be painfully obvious to any Raptors fan. The fact that he can create his own shots, the fact that he can go get his own buckets, the fact that he has the potential to be your closer, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think there's tremendous upside with having just a scorer of Jalen Green's potential in this lineup with this team. I think it will go a long way to just giving that giving the Raptors the W's in a lot of close games that they otherwise lose. So in that regard, I think Green is a fantastic fit with the Raptors. Probably by comparison, a better fit than at least Jalen Suggs in regarding the prospects that I've previously discussed. I think he's a better fit than him. Mobley is obviously the most natural fit of the guys that I've talked about to this point. But I think you could also make a case as to whether or not you think Jalen Green is a better fit with Toronto than Cade Cunningham. I think that is absolutely a discussion that can be had. And this is all just a long-winded way of saying that I think he's a good fit with Toronto. I don't think there should be any worry in that regard, outside of maybe one thing that I will get to later when we're talking about the case against. I think the case for drafting Jalen Green is a very easy one, and it's pretty much an extension of what I was talking about with the fit. You're adding a straight up walking bucket to this offense, a guy that can just go get his own offense when it stalls out, or at the end of the games, hopefully, when you're looking for big time shots from players to potentially squeak out close games that you're otherwise losing at the moment. I think Green adds tremendous value there. We've obviously talked about this in Raptors Nation a lot, that the core of Fred VanVleet, OG, and Pascal just needs a superstar to really put them over the top. I think this guy has that potential. I think he can be that good. And I think, you know, in a situation like Toronto that is so good at developing players, the sky's the limit for this guy, and it could really just have a exciting future for the Raptors moving forward. I think Jalen Green reminds me of somebody like Zach LaVine a lot personally. I think he has a higher ceiling than Zach LaVine, which is comfortable to think about, but even if he ends up just as what Zach LaVine is now, I think that just goes such a long way for this team. Basically, there's a lot of reason to like this guy. I honestly did not think I would like Jalen Green as much as I did until I threw on the tapes and just watched him. Now, I'm sold. The case against here really has to do one thing and one thing alone for me personally, and it's the idea of potentially alienating Gary Trent Jr. Now, when Gary Trent Jr. showed up here, I remember this quote where he was talking about how he felt wanted by Toronto and by the coaching staff, implying that it wasn't a feeling he had when he was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. So, does Gary Trent Jr. get alienated and feel unwanted if Toronto drafts somebody in his position and potentially starts him ahead of Trent? Does Trent struggle off the bench? Does he have the same desire, as a potential sixth man as opposed to, a future starter with this team? It's a tricky situation, and I think it's obviously, this is a discussion more so of just intangible things as opposed to on the court. When it comes to the fit with Jalen Green, obviously. But yeah, those intangible things could just translate over to Gary Trent Jr. and just not performing. And is that something you want to risk if you're Toronto? I think is the question that needs to be asked. Is it a situation where you maybe consider moving him even though you just got him? There's definitely questions with that, and there's definitely those kinds of questions to me if your plan is to take Jalen Green. So that wraps things up for me today, which means the top 4 prospects in this draft have officially been covered. With that being said, I want to do something fun for the comment section today. Rank the top 4 in terms of how much you like them. I feel like most people obviously have Cade Cunningham at the number 1, but I'm really curious to see the rankings 2 to 4 with regards to Jalen Suggs, obviously Evan Mobley, and Jalen Green. So drop that below for me and let's have a debate. So other than that, the usual drill, folks. Like the video. It doesn't take a lot of time and it goes a long way to helping the video be more seen, and I greatly appreciate every time you folks do it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I really appreciate all the added subs that I've gained of late. You folks are great, and shout out to the OGs that have been here for a long time too. You are not underappreciated, believe me. Yeah, so that's me for the day, and I am out of here.